One night, as the wind was whipping through the city streets and the rain was pouring from the sky, the young woman decided to go for a walk. It was a strange decision, but there was something strange and inexplicable in her heart that prompted her to leave home at midnight. As she traversed the empty streets, she began to feel a strange uneasiness that slowly turned into fear. Of course, she had a flashlight with her, but its light was insufficient to illuminate the entire road. Away from the city, in the distance, she saw something strange, which appeared to be a figure standing in the middle of the road. It was a figure dressed in a long black robe that moved to the rhythm of the wind. The woman became afraid, especially when she noticed that the figure began to approach. It soon became clear that this was no ordinary figure, but something much more frightening. As soon as it reached her, the woman noticed that it was a faceless figure with unnaturally long limbs and sharp claws. The woman started to run, but the figure ran after her. She finally managed to reach her house, close the door and hide under the covers. However, her relief was short-lived, as she began to hear strange sounds coming from outside. It was the sound of windows closing, doors opening and closing, and strange rustling sounds coming from the floor. The woman froze, hearing something that startled her even more. It was the voice of a man who seemed to be saying something to her. She finally plucked up the courage to come out from under the covers and check what was going on. When she stepped outside, she saw that her house had been taken over by a faceless figure. All the furniture was overturned and the walls were covered with strange markings. The woman realized that she had to do something to free her home from this terrifying figure. She started screaming and fighting with the faceless figure, but nothing worked. Finally, when she was at her wit's end, the figure disappeared, but the woman still felt its presence in her home. All her attempts to get rid of the creepy ghost were futile, and it kept coming back to haunt her in the darkness of the night. Day by day, the woman began to lose control of her life. She began to hear voices talking to her at night, and had the feeling that something was constantly watching her. She began to lose weight, her hair became coarse and her skin turned pale. She stopped leaving the house, never wanting to feel threatened again. More days passed, and the woman became more and more distant from reality. Finally, one frosty night, something drew her to the basement where she saw a faceless figure in the corner. She started screaming and running, but the figure followed her, taking faster and faster steps. Finally, the woman stopped dead in her tracks and realized there was no hope left. The faceless figure slowly approached her, its long limbs lengthening and its eyes glowing with a red light. The woman felt she was one step away from death. But then a miracle happened. A bright ray of light appeared from the darkness and surrounded the woman and the faceless figure. The beam illuminated the entire basement and the figure disappeared, leaving behind only the rustle of the wind. The woman was completely stunned, not knowing what had happened. But she knew one thing: she would never again go out alone on a walk in the dark night, because she never knows what lurks in the darkness.